Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official Upset Alert College Football Week number 2 video. I'll also be going over some smart bets as well as some parlays. I nearly won a big one last week. It was really unfortunate. The overtime game in Northern Illinois cost me a really crazy payday. But either way, guys, we're going to be getting into just 3 different teams I would say could be on upset alert. The first one being Kansas State. Not a lot of people, basically no one, talking about this game. And honestly, I think even if Troy wins, it just feels like this game is kind of irrelevant no matter what. To me, Kansas State, they're a 7-5 football team this year. Last year, I think early in the season, they lost a really bad game as well. I know they came back and had a really good season, but they had Deuce Vaughn. Now they don't have him. I like Troy in terms of possibly surprising a Kansas State team playing at 11 a.m. with a horrible home environment because let's be honest, 11 a.m. against Troy, Kansas State, I believe right now they're minus 16.5, not minus 15.5. That's another reason. One of the things you learn, a lot of the times the general public is just so wrong about these games. So almost seeing line movement like that, you could treat it as a positive, going into the opposite direction. But it was up to minus 17, and now we have seen it come back down to 16.5. So more people now betting on Troy a little bit. But either way, I think Troy keeps this game close. It's boring. It's early in the season. It's going to be sloppy. It might not even be 27-24. But I would say Kansas State certainly on upset alert. The next one, this is a little bit more realistic, I guess, or I guess more people would be saying this. It is Texas Tech at home against Oregon. Now, there are also people saying, well, Oregon dropped 81 points. I mean, listen, look, I love the 80 burger. It's great, but you really can't read anything into it. So I like Texas Tech at home. I was impressed by them in week 1, even though they lost to Wyoming. That's another thing where you'll see casual people who are like, oh my God, they lost to Wyoming. Well, there's a few different things. Number one, it's a brutal game. You're going on the road at Wyoming. There's a lightning delay. The game doesn't start until whatever. It was like 8:50 East Coast time, 6:50 Wyoming time. They've got a raucous environment. It's their Super Bowl. There's just a lot that was going against Texas Tech, and they were playing well early. They were like up 14-3. It went to double overtime, and they ended up losing. That doesn't deter me from still liking Texas Tech. I think they're a very underrated team based off of a lot of casual people thinking they're horrible because they lost to Wyoming when not understanding the full context of that game. And then you have an Oregon team whose defense is just not impressive. Look, I like Oregon. Oregon is a dark horse to make the college football playoff. They have a very good veteran quarterback, Bo Nix. We get it. But by the way, Bo Nix's career is really interesting because he was not, I wouldn't say a complete bust at Auburn, but when he went to Oregon, he was really just like an average quarterback, maybe slightly above average, and he has really turned his college career around at Oregon. Last year having a good season, and this year with the Heisman hype, so good for him. But I do think, 6.5 points is just too much for Texas Tech at home against a suspect defense, and Texas Tech did show the ability to be potent on offense in week 1. So I think it's a higher scoring game. The over-under, I'm guessing, is well into the 60s. I'm not interested in betting that. I would just take Texas Tech plus the 6.5. And then the next one, so this game's actually at noon. I guess I forgot to change it, but you can see Virginia Tech sitting -3. They got a nice little black background. I don't know why it looks pretty cool, honestly. But yeah, so definitely Purdue in this game. This line has moved down to 2.5. But I think Purdue wins it outright. It's going to be lower scoring because it's a noon game. Lane Stadium is not going to be a great environment for this one because of the game time starting so early. And Purdue showed me some things, honestly, in week 1. Yes, they ended up losing, but Fresno State is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It was back and forth, whatever. Hudson Card to me looked good enough to where I would take him in a game at Virginia Tech. And another big key to this game, Purdue is coming into this game 0-1. Virginia Tech is 1-0. I do not see these two teams being that separated. Virginia Tech going to 2-0, Purdue going to 0-2. This is a balance game. They're both going to be 1-1 after it. I feel confident saying that. I will take Purdue to win outright. It wouldn't even be that big of an upset, but technically Virginia Tech has been favored the entire week. And then we do have some smart money bets for week 2. These are the games that a lot of the actual money. So what you'll get is you'll get a lot of bets on a certain team, but then you'll get a lot of the money going on the opposite team. And this is kind of what the smart money is. So the people that actually have a lot of money riding on these games, betting one way compared to just the overall general sentiment, some Joe Schmo, throwing $50. We want to know, where are the sharps going in terms of their money? They do like Ball State plus the 42.5 at Georgia, and I can understand this because Georgia, you could say, well, this is a balanced game. Georgia didn't cover against UT Martin, so they're going to cover in this one. But I think Georgia kind of starts off the year a little bit slow. It's hard to get motivated if you are Georgia early in the season. You're facing nobodies. I believe next week they might face South Carolina, but still, it's just Ball State. They got crushed by Kentucky, but 42.5 is a big number. If Ball State can at least get 10 points, Carson Beck and that offense, to me, I don't know. These games are always really tough, I'll be honest. 42.5, I guess we'll see. Old Dominion +6 versus Louisiana. Honestly, I have no clue, but they love Old Dominion plus the 6. I think Old Dominion's down to 5.5 now. UConn +3 at Georgia State. Yeah, so certainly I think UConn's probably going to win this game outright. This would be maybe be another upset potential, although it's only a 3-point spread. But yeah, UConn returns a lot. They performed relatively well against NC State. And now they're going to Georgia State, who had a really bad performance in week 1. So really, UConn should probably be 3-point favorites. Houston at Rice, the under 52.5. So yeah, Rice Stadium is just so miserable. There's going to be no atmosphere. Houston really had a bad offensive performance in week 1 without Clayton Tune. Rice is just terrible in general. To me, the only reason this over-under is in the 50s is because of Houston's pedigree of having a decent offense, but they certainly didn't show any potential in week 1 without, Clayton Tune now that he's in the NFL. So to me, that does seem like a relatively good bet. Mississippi State -9.5 versus Arizona. So there definitely is the angle that Mississippi State could be looking ahead in this one to next week when they face LSU. But Arizona is just not a good team. This is a mismatch. To me, this is like 45-20. Mississippi State at home should win this game easily. Stanford plus the 29.5 at USC. This is kind of just betting against USC's defense. Stanford showed some things. Maybe they're a little bit undervalued. People seeing that, they could stay within 30 there. Charlotte plus the 24.5 at Maryland. A lot of people like Charlotte. And, it's just, to me, a crapshoot. 24.5, I don't know. Maryland does return their quarterback. I guess we'll see. I wouldn't feel really confident betting that one myself. And then getting to my top parlays, I almost was able to win a huge one last week, but I did win the safe parlay where I just take money lines, and I have 2 different ones. So this first one, it is mainly money lines, but it's also, a point spread. You can see Liberty at home versus New Mexico State. Very confident in Liberty winning that game. They're sitting -450. You do have Troy plus the 17 on the point spread. Love that at Kansas State. You have Mississippi State sitting -400 money line. That's got to be an auto lock. Oklahoma State, love the value of Oklahoma State coming off that bad performance last week. Yes, you are risking it a little bit because Arizona State, they've got that young true freshman quarterback. They're going to be at home. It should be a good environment at night. But to me, Oklahoma State's just a better team, and they're only -150 on the money line. Notre Dame at NC State. I just cannot see Notre Dame losing before that Ohio State game. They've already performed so well. Maybe we're kind of overrating Notre Dame a little bit because realistically, who have they faced? They faced Tennessee State and, Navy. It's like, should we really be valuing Notre Dame this much? I don't know. But either way, against NC State, I don't see them losing. They might not cover, though. That should be a good game. That's a noon game. And if I was a Notre Dame fan, I would be a little, it's a game you got to win. Marcus Freeman's got to get that done in his second year. And then I will take Kansas in the Friday night game versus Illinois. So I have been completely against Illinois all preseason going into the year. I said to take Toledo plus the 9.5. They almost won outright. And I certainly think Kansas has such a much more explosive, high upside offense. Also, they're at home. Also, it's a Friday night game. They're trying to revitalize their football program. They just announced a major stadium renovation. There's energy in that program, and it's a Friday night game, and they have more offensive talent than the Illini. I will take Kansas, money line, they're minus 150 or minus 3 is the point spread. And then we will go with Iowa to beat Iowa State. This is just a brutal game. I do think there is value in Iowa. To me, Iowa State is just not good this year. But these two teams, basically it's the same thing year after year after year after year. They go into this game in week 2 or week 3. One of them is like a 3-point favorite, and the over-under is like 32. It is literally the same thing. And I think Iowa, week 1, their offensive output, you can say what you want about it. Whatever, but we'll go with them. And then this one is kind of the safer parlay, I guess. I'll go with Rutgers at home versus Temple. I feel good about that. Rutgers performing well against Northwestern in week 1. Temple's offense is just terrible, sitting minus 370, maybe some decent value. North Texas for sure. They're going to beat FIU. They're sitting minus 525. Not great value there, but I love North Texas to cover the 12.5 as well. Air Force, money line at Sam Houston State. I have been on Air Force, since the preseason, and I really think there's going to be a lot of people on the Air Force bandwagon. When you look at their schedule, I do think they're possibly a dark horse to, honestly, I'll just say win the national title. I'm not even trolling. Like legitimately, I would not be surprised if we got to the playoff and it was Ohio State versus Air Force. And it would be great for college football. You can't even argue it. It would be great for the sport. And then you've got Miami of Ohio. I mean, UMass is horrible. I think Miami of Ohio covers that 7.5-point spread as well. Oklahoma, to me, Oklahoma, after their massive trouncing of Arkansas State, they have been overrated by the analytics. And it's understandable why. I immediately knew that's what was going to happen, because when you beat an FBS team 73-0, the analytics are going to view that domination in such a crazy positive light. But I still think Oklahoma, by the way, the spread in that Oklahoma game dropped a lot, because I do think Vegas, they base all of their spreads off analytics, and people are saying, there's no way, no. They should not be 17-point favorites against Preston Stone and SMU, especially this is an SMU team. They've been revitalized. They just got in the ACC. They're going to want to make a major statement on the road, but I think Oklahoma certainly moneyline they win this game. They're not going to have a relapse of last year and start losing. And then I do love Alabama versus Texas. It's just another year I'm not buying Texas. I don't where is the hype with Texas? Is Quinn Ewers okay? Yeah, he's a fine quarterback. Is he anything crazy good? No. Jalen, in terms of a college quarterback, are we really sure Quinn Ewers is that much better than Jalen Milroe, who's really a dual threat? And Alabama has so many more weapons and such a deeper team overall. I just don't understand the Texas hype. They return a bunch. They still lose Bijan. And certainly I think Alabama wins this game easily. So that's a safer parlay there. Bama, that's a 7 o'clock game on ESPN. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.